So let's just begin with how I became acquainted with the story, because this is not something that I would search. This is the true story of Stephen Barry and Stoni. Pretty much just their lives, their short-lived lives, and I'm going to allude to a book. The book is called Monday's Not Coming. So last year I was on a reading kick, and I asked my Twitter audience or Twitter followers what I should read next. And someone suggested a book called Monday's Not Coming. And I read it. And it's written by a black woman, so that really encouraged me, because I was like, I'm going to read this good fiction. You know, I wanted a fiction story because I'd been reading so much nonfiction. So I was like, this will be great. I read the book and I was disturbed. So, yeah, I started to try to put that whole book behind me, but then I realized that that book is very much based on a true story. And so that'll be the story that we covered tonight. I have to warn you guys before. This video will not be suitable for younger children. It contains graphic details about child abuse, murder, and disturbing details about the handling of corpses. So we're going to get into it. But I have to start my disclaimer and warn you guys, just so you're not caught off guard the way I was. So if sexual assault is a trigger, I would caution you just to maybe skip this episode, because it's gonna get interesting. It's gonna go deep. Also, it would be remiss of me not to mention that this video contains detail of sexual assault. And as a matter of fact, we'll start with that portion of the story. So Michelle Blair was 36 when the story all took place. She claimed to be a victim of violent sexual assault in her childhood, and she also claims that she tried to inform her mother of what was going on, and her mother told her something to the extent of, "It's already happened, what do you want me to do about it?" So I feel like that's an important factor to consider with the details that I'm about to give you guys. So Michelle Blair was 36 when she was served an eviction notice to be evicted from her Detroit home, which is absolutely awful. When workers went to evict her, they discovered inside of her freezer the bodies of her two children, Stephen Barry, age 9, and Stoni Blair, age 13. So they discovered the bodies of her children, and that's when she was arrested for their murders. Michelle would later go on to admit to murdering her children, and she would begin to pretty much shock everyone with her admission of the crime and her reason for doing it. Michelle Blair, stated that she never got any help from the girls or her son's fathers. Michelle, who appeared angry in court and very animated when discussing the children's fathers, stated over and over how they never helped her. And for the record, it actually reflected that. I mean, these men were behind in child support, but in reality, Stephen Barry's and her daughter's father, Stoni's father, which were two different men, actually wanted to know where their children were and wanted to see them, but Michelle denied them access to the children because she said that they were broke and they didn't need to see the kids. So this story, it's gonna get, just bear with me. So we discover later through more evidence that the court digs up that she had actually had a child protective service case twice. And of course, because the children were discovered dead as a result of child abuse, which is what the child support or the child services case was about, child services say they somehow lost the file, which I think is really convenient when it comes to this case, because they should have been held criminally responsible for not removing those children when the abuse was first reported back, first in 2002 and then in 2005. When those cases came up, that's when it should have been dealt with. It should not have taken the discovery of these two precious children for the law to get involved and terminate her parental rights. They terminated Michelle Blair's parental rights after the death of her other two children, which made no sense because they also gave her life in prison. So it made no sense. So not only do you have a system that has failed these children, it's later discovered that Stoni's teacher was actually made aware of her absence. And he made the school board aware that she was missing. The school board did an investigation and found out her mother was homeschooling, and then they never looked into it. And this is in Detroit. Now, to understand a little bit about that, you have to understand that Michigan has very little, very, very little in the way, pretty much nothing in the way of verifying homeschooled children, which there's no way. Because even at the height of a pandemic, everybody was terrified for those children who lived with their abusers and had to spend majority of their time at home with an abusive parent, because they just bleakly anticipated an increase in child death. I remember thinking when everyone went home for the pandemic and school became virtual, how much abuse would fall through the cracks because of no system in place like the school systems to catch bruises or starving or, deviant behaviors that are a result of, of sexual or, physical abuse in the home or neglect even. And I remember when they did the lunch program, a lot of people were happy because kids that may not have normally been able to eat were getting food delivered to their homes. So that was awesome. But to bring it back to this case, at the time, this was back, guys, their bodies were discovered in 2015. There was nothing in place like that for those kids. So those poor kids. So the children were, Stoni and Stephen were Michelle Blair's middle children. And she claimed that Stephen confessed to sexually abusing his youngest brother and urinating on him. She claimed that after, that the 8-year-old told her this, and then going off of that, she made him confess. And then she said that her daughter Stoni later agreed and said she also sexually abused the 8-year-old, and so that is why they had to die. Now, that makes no sense. The first murder was of her son, Stephen Barry. He was murdered at the hands of his mother and tortured for weeks. The autopsy shows that they were burned with hot objects, scalded with water, starved, all of these things. And Stoni's oldest sister actually gives an account of what happened, and it doesn't match anything the mother says, which a lot of times abusers are liars and manipulators too. And a lot of times they don't even see how unbelievable their story is. They think that everyone is caught up or drinking the Kool-Aid. From all accounts, this woman, from other people, they said that she always mentioned her children and seemed to be the perfect mother, but they always do, right? After killing Stephen, apparently Michelle put him in their deep freezer in their living room where he resided. Later on, Michelle claims that Stoni admitted to sexually assaulting the 8-year-old, and that's when she decided that she also needed to be punished. And so she killed and tortured her. She died as you guys can see, my eyes are red. I've been crying like crazy, but Stoni died in August of 2013. So she killed her son first and then her daughter, and because they admitted to raping her son, her youngest son. Nobody really noticed besides that teacher I said, who actually asked what was going on, but he retired, so he wasn't able to follow up with the school district about where children's whereabouts. The kids went undiscovered for years, and it wasn't until that eviction was served that their bodies were discovered. And the mother, she's a piece of work. The things that she said, she was like, I'm not remorseful for killing them. I imposed the death sentence on them because of what they'd done. The type of sickness that you have to be struggling with to do something like that and then call your children demons is deep, deep rooted. And the reason why I say it's important for us to know about her rape and molestation is it puts you in the frame of mind of what an insane person would do. And even though you can tell there is like the elevator is not stopping on all the floors with her when you watch video of her, there's a level of malice about her. There's a level of coldness about her where she's bitter because her molestation was allowed to continue. And she really, in her sick mind, believes that she was somehow freeing her children from being, in this world. Their grandparents for not reporting the molestation from their mom and getting her therapy. Their mom, because of the heinous acts she carried out on her children, the death sentence she imposed on them. The school system failed her, except for that one teacher. Social services failed them because they were not doing wellness checks on those children. So, and even their fathers failed in a way because they didn't push it. When they were not seeing healthy behaviors from her, they didn't demand full custody and pursue it. They just struggled under the burden of child support. But I can say that those men probably did try. Because of the way Michelle is, they probably decided that it wasn't worth it. This story is not all gloom and doom, thankfully, because I don't know if I would be able to pick myself up. I love children and I hate to see negative things happen to them. The oldest and the youngest were adopted to family members who will look after them and take care of them. The other two children got therapy and they seem to be on a great path. The oldest is looking to start college soon. So good things for those children, and I needed that. I needed to know that they were okay because what happened wasn't okay. And there are so many systems that have failed Stoni Blair and Stephen Barry. But there is hope because legislation has now been proposed. Legislation has now been proposed in Michigan that there has to be wellness checks on students who are being homeschooled, and thank God for that, because on one hand it can be a major inconvenience for parents who really are doing what they need to do and they're being hounded, but for those parents who are abusive, it will definitely give the court system something to go off to remove parental rights and remove the children from those toxic environments. So I hope that today the story wasn't too heavy. I know for me it was terrible because I cried, and to this day my eyes water thinking about those kids and what they must have suffered through. But I hope that you guys are able to find the light at the end of the tunnel like I had to in this story. But let me know what you think. Find me where the wild